Oh, naiona ndi masori pano wakhala bwinobwino. Kasunkara kathakuva kukavanga tabwera takabwezera apa kalu Is makeup plastic? Now we can look. Oh, what about class one? Nana, msaka unong this. Yeah. Okay. What's your number? 004 22. Eh? 007 20 ja? Wana tinga kale? Eh? Chani yako. Koya mbilira. Tutefolonga mbili nde yako ndijani koyamba. Zoonera na yayi. Ya wino dzina yako ndani? Eh? Mpando. Ya, iyi sina lembe nambala yenu. Yako sina lembe nambala iwe. Sina lembe. Sina lembe nambala. Kani again. Tukamba tujita zao jeni tupa. Classes of shares, that's what we are focusing on. I think yeah, musamba una mapepala. Tell you mapepala tinachita last week mwenye. This week siona so mapepala. You can be assured, but by man under 50, then you can be happy with it. Don't sit in Africa most months. Not much. Unless there will be another lecturer who mark the final exam. But if it's the same one, then it won't affect as much. Yeah. It depends also with the Muvanga Bwanji again. What do you How much? No, again. Ka assignment kaja kuti munapanga bwa? Koma nane. Iti? Assignment inalipo mojoka. Inalipo mojoka. Maliza chake. Nane. Simbabereka mango obereka ma results yayo kuti na the Eugene was the lowest was 4 out of 10. It was out of 10, yeah? The highest was 6 out of 10. Yeah. Sindikupeleka. Yeah. My swagat. Muifuna question paper? But if you want it, I can give you. Ndikoza kungoichita scanning kugera. Koma sindili nazo zonse za. Yeah, but it's koma tinakambirana izi taya ujene last week nanga this week tikambirana za maiso deti jedwa nduza nurija we went through the questions in Majombe line. Yeah? The assignment was simple. Na kamba soko assignment in Majomba dala mzote. Sana Jomba dala kabla kinyo ndangu banga. Nina bongeza ngaza. Ndio sema naona communication. Consultation ile ambayo Class is supposed to be one. Command no. Yeah, no, the normal class is supposed to be one. Yes. Command no Augustine after saying a person is loading. Yeah, prepare class should be one. Then when I'm going class is done, 1 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Using this phone, you give a charge. Then I will get a phone as level you want to class. What was that? Yo, mazimi sa phone kutija. Yeah. So they would in fact normally have announced Marcus of mine. The 5 Valiwa. Mpando sona lembe assignment. Sinaona bwana. Mona yako ilivyo. Ajandani? Muhoni. Okay. Ya samu ilivyo. Mpando sinaona foya. Ndikayanga naso. If you have any issues in the menena magiramu, so they haven't yet submitted the results. But I can always change. Oh. Yeah, I think when we are talking about the memorandum of association, we said normally the promoters would want to No. We are talking about the classes of students. No, let's forget about the exam. I mean, we have gone past that. It was a mid-semester exam. It was just trying to show us how we understand certain things, and also to make me appreciate how best I should present these issues to you, and maybe make the next exam a little tougher, so that all of you spend a little more time. I think we can get the door fixed if it's possible. It doesn't make noise. No, the registration of the memorandum of association creates the company. That's what we have been learning. And in this memorandum of association, we normally highlight the subscribers and the number of shares that they have taken, if they have taken shares, and the class of shares to which they are subscribing to. And principally, there are two types of shares, but I think in my teaching today, I will mention a number of them, more than just the two types. But ordinarily, in the companies, most of the companies, whether they are private companies or they are public liability companies, there are basically two types of shares: the ordinary shares and the preference shares. Of course, the preference shares, in most cases, they are divided even further. So, in the memorandum of association, you are going to indicate that. So, the classes are one, and most common shares are ordinary shares. We normally call the ordinary shares as the owners of the company. Maybe the first question I should ask is, what is a share? Ordinary shares, when we don't know what a share is. What is a share? Hmm? What is a share? Now, a unit of stock. Mwambonera pa Google. Unit of stock. What is a share?
The parts that you own.
Part owned. Investment. Investment can be in form of a loan. It can be investment in form of ownership. Maybe what are the rights or benefits of someone who has a share in a company, who is normally called a shareholder? A shareholder. What are these? What are the rights of a shareholder? Mm-hmm. If the directors so fit, you can get dividend. What else? You can vote at a general meeting. The sure benefit of having a share in a company is that you have a right to vote at a general meeting. That's given. The dividend is dependent on the performance of the company and the decision that directors may make. So yes, you have. So, but we are talking about classes of shares. The first class of shares is that of an ordinary shareholder. And ordinary shares are the ones that entitle you to, or they are part of the share of the value, part of the value of the company. So if a company is created by the subscribers, by the promoters, it comprises a lot of pieces, bits and pieces. And these bits and pieces are what we call shares. And the shares are divided amongst the people that buy into them. So you have each and every part owned by someone. This is owned by another person, etc. So the bits and pieces are what you own as shares. And the shares, like for the Malawi kind of setup, they may be divided into 1 kwacha, or they may be divided into 50 tambara, or they may be divided into 2 kwacha. So they have a monetary value. So if, for example, if you have 10 million kwacha shares divided into 1 kwacha, that means you have 10 million shares. And these shares can be called ordinary if they are normal shares. They are the ones that form the value of the company. So this is the most basic of all classes of shares. The other type, if we want to distinguish preference shares. Preference shares are a class which, by their name, gives what should I call it? They get priority. And this priority is basically on dividends. This priority, what happens is, let's say you have made 5 billion profit, and you declare that 2.5 billion will be given out as dividend. So if preference shareholders, normally preference shareholders are given in terms of percentage. Let's say there are 5% preference shareholders. So what will happen is you are going to first give dividend to the preference shareholders at the percentage that is preferred. And then let's say that comes to 900 million. That is 0.9 million. It means the money that will be available to ordinary shareholders will be 1.6 billion. So in terms of the classes, the difference, it's only that the preference shareholders have priority when dividend is being declared. In some cases, depending on what is written in the articles of association, even when the directors don't want to give dividend, only preference shareholders may get their dividend, because it's specifically stated like that. In other cases, preference shareholders, one, I think, let me explain this so that if they come on exam, you don't. One, they are a priority. Two, they may be given dividend even in a year that normally dividend hasn't been given. In a year, dividend has not been given. And the third is that it can have a cumulative effect. Of course, this has to be specifically stated in the articles of association. The cumulative effect, what it means is that if you have made 5 billion profit, but this 5 billion is not enough to pay the preference shareholders, you may pay them this amount, and then the balance be taken forward to another year. So it has a cumulative effect in the fact that if you haven't paid them enough for this year, the amount will be accumulated, can be taken forward to the next year. And so next year, when the dividend is declared, they will get that year's dividend and dividend for the previous year, the amount which was not paid the previous year. While ordinary shareholders, it's what has been declared this year, you get only that. That's the end. The only benefit is that the company is owned by you, and you And you have a right to vote at the annual general meeting. I don't know whether I've made myself clear on the distinction between a preference share and an ordinary share. If you were asked to distinguish an ordinary share and a preference share, what would be the distinction? What would distinguish an ordinary share from a preference share?
Preference shareholders negate dividend in the year where dividends not being declared well on the shares.
That's one. Two.
They get priority over the
That's two. Yeah. Three.
shares are accumulated.
What does cumulative effect mean? Can I translate it? Are we getting what? Yeah. So what is cumulative effect? Okay.
Their share doubles in the place where the shares
No. That means you can get arrears if you were not paid this year because of whatever reasons. The next year, your amount which you were supposed to have been paid will still be there. So you'll be paid last year's and this year's. That's what we're saying, cumulative effect. Yeah?
So on ordinary shareholders, if the dividends were not going to be paid in that year, but the preference shareholders will still get their dividends, then ordinary shareholders in the next year, if the dividends are being given, they only get
For that year.
that year, while the preference shareholders will get cumulative from previous year and the current year.
Yeah. The amount that was not paid last year will be paid, and the amount for this year they also be paid. Ordinary shareholders, you just get what has been declared that year.
So the reason is that the ordinary shareholders are the owners of the company wide.
They suffer like
They don't suffer.
They're not getting the dividends that year. That's okay. Yeah, but
Okay, it's like let's look at it. If you have a cow, a dairy cow, which you are milking, you get milk from it. Then you have others who have contributed to say, maybe for example, they say, okay, we'll be giving you feed for this cow. So you are the owner of the cow, ordinary shareholder. And then there's another person who says, we are going to contribute towards the feed for this cow. But what we want is that we should have half a liter of milk every day. If on a certain day, okay, and you are selling also the milk. So say your cow is producing 5 liters. People have lined up, they want milk. You have people who want 6 liters of milk. This one who is giving you feed will insist that his half liter should be there. So that means you are going to sell 4.5 liters. And of course, that means these guys, although they wanted 6 liters, they only get 4.5. On another day, you manage to produce 5 liters, but people to buy are only, they want 3 liters. That means with this guy who is supplying the preference shareholder, you are going to give away 3.5 liters of milk. That time, that day, you can have 1.5 liters. And if you want to drink 1.5 liters, you have 1.5 liters. But in the day that there is no milk, you should be ready to make the sacrifice. But in a good year, in a good day where those who want to buy are fewer, or there's zero, that means you have 4.5 liters to drink. So you'll be happy. But as an ordinary shareholder, your interest is that the company should be performing. You see, last year was this year, according to, do you follow what happens on the stock exchange? For example, Ilovo is one of the highly performing companies. I mean, it's a huge investment. Huge. One of the biggest companies that is ever in this country. If we had 10 companies the size of Ilovo, this economy would be different. That company is huge. So this year, because of the struggles that they had in terms of, they lost hugely in November, or is it in November or December, when Malawi devalued the currency, and they struggled to supply sugar somehow, and also maybe the pricing of sugar went berserk. And if you followed their annual general meeting this year, I think it was held is it in August or thereabouts, their performance was so poor. So for the owners of the company, the ordinary shareholders, I mean, it was straightforward that if they are going to gain their value, the price of sugar had to go up. And I think, was it this week, they have increased the price of sugar. I don't know to what it's now. 2.6, eh? Yeah.
But you can't find
There is.
Ilovo.
Oh, Muveza Salima.
Hey.
There's Samago Salima. Eh? What?
Even Sun about the shops in Sun, they didn't have
Yeah, sure. What are these? Sugar white has always been there. Omano, it's more expensive than. Okay, we have been taught that the better sugar is the brown one. Yeah, but for baking, those who bake, they prefer the white sugar, but it's a little bit expensive. It's more expensive than the brown sugar. It's refined. You use lime to clean it up to come to that white. So you have, there's another process beyond the normal process of producing sugar to produce white sugar.
The same line that we use.
Yeah. what else?
The same line that
Yeah, lime is used in many ways. If you want to improve the acidity of the soil, you also lime the soil. So lime is used in many ways. Yeah. Are you worried that
things that you don't.
yeah, but it's not okay. We are talking about the classes of shares. So if they declared some dividend, but if you compare with the dividend that was declared last year, I think this is lower. But you invest into a company because you want to benefit from it. Just like the example that I've given of a cow. If you have a cow which is dairy cow, you want to have milk. You want always to make a lot of milk and be able to sell some of the milk and enjoy some. So preference shareholders and the difference between preference shareholders and the ordinary shareholders, as you have said, are the major ones are those three. But we have other shares, classes of shares as well, which are not commonly and normally you will not see them on the, what did I say about the preference? Yeah, okay, that's I've said. There are some which are called deferred shares. Normally, deferred shares are okay. This is if we were promoters of a company, maybe we are 10 of us promoters, and because we are promoters, we realize that this company will be very profitable, and then we would say we have 100,000 ordinary shares at one kwash, and we have 50,000 5% preference shares. Then we may say we have 10,000 deferred shares. The deferred shares may be only applicable to the promoters, we the 10 promoters. So each one of us may have 1,000 shares. And we may not pay for these shares. We just say these are shares available to us. as a block. They are not available for transfer. They are not available for anything. We'll describe that in the articles of association. And we'll say these shares will only be given dividend when all others have been given dividends. So the preference shareholders will be given dividend, the ordinary shareholders will be given dividend. If there is still some money that can be available, you can give to us deferred shareholders. It's like you want to benefit from the company because, I mean, you were the brains behind it, but you didn't buy shares, but you want to benefit. And this in the current setup, it's only in private companies that you may have deferred shareholders, but in public liability companies, I think on the stock market specifically, it's completely banned. It's not allowed to create defined shareholders. It's like you are trying to appropriate some of the profits to yourselves. Yeah, but this is very common these days. How do people appropriate profits to themselves these days? Not necessarily the shareholders, but maybe the executive members. You find that when you are in executive management, you decide that buy us top of the range vehicles, and after 4 years or 5 years, these vehicles should belong to us. How? Huh?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years. That's more. That's even more stealing more than necessary. I mean, why should it happen like that? Isn't that a form of stealing? These days, even in the public sector, you find that even a PS says after 3-4 years, as PS, the car that you were driving, of course, they say we are going to sell it to you at 10% the price or 5% the price. That's stealing. But basically, that's what also happens in companies. There are some clever guys, when they are setting up the company, they create what is called deferred shares. But as I've said, the companies that trade on the stock exchange are not allowed to create deferred shares. So these days they are rare. It's rare to find a company with deferred shares, but just in case you find one, deferred shares are meant to benefit mostly promoters, subscribers. I'm not saying they are equal to what happens in companies where people find ways of appropriating company assets. They say, okay, because we are selling cooking oil, if we as employees wanted to buy this cooking oil, we are going to buy at 70% of the price. Isn't that stealing? Yeah? Why should you buy cheaper? Eh? What are what are benefits? It's stealing. It's a way of stealing.
On preference shares, you have written 50,005% preference. Why is it written different from the ordinary or bulk?
Okay. The preference shares, you always have to state what is the agreed amount of the dividend that you pay. The 5% is the dividend that you are going to pay. It can be 5%, it can be 5%, it can be 7%, it can be whatever percentage you agree. So it can be 3.5%. So the preference shares have to be to indicate how much of the profit that you have agreed to take. If it's whatever percentage you agree, so it has to be agreed in advance. Zamvega? Is it making sense? Yeah, another form of shares. Then the other is redeemable. Redeemable shares. So redeemable shares, it's like because I don't have money as a company, I can ask you, you guys to say, please, can you buy shares in my company or in this company? Because we need desperately money to invest in this. But the agreement is that when we start performing very well, maybe after 2 or 3 years, we can buy back these shares. So we can issue, say, 40,000 redeemable shares. What it means is that after performance, we can say at this time, can we buy back those shares? So the company can buy back. That means they are going to give you your money, and now you give up the shares. Does it sounds right?
Unless they buy a
Well, does it sound right? Would you buy redeemable shares? Why not? Okay, maybe let me explain one thing, that maybe we have shares may be called 1 kwacha shares, whatever. But 1 kwacha shares today, okay, for example, I think the first time TNM issued their shares. They were at 4 kwacha. There was a time what these shares went up to around, I think, 32 kwacha. Of course, the few months of this year, they went back down to around 18 kwacha. So shares change in value. It's possible these 40,000 redeemable shares, they can buy them, let's at 5 kwacha. But at the end of the year, the time that they want to buy back, let's say they are at 15,000 kwacha. So that means they will have to buy back at 15,000 kwacha. But it's also possible that the company can become worse off and the shares can now be at 3 kwacha 50. So they can buy back at 3 kwacha 50. That's what I'm saying, that they went down to 18. But they started at 4, they went up to around 30. They are now, I think 18 is a little better. There was a time they went down to around 16. So they are on the up. They are better shares. If you want to invest long term, you can buy TNM shares. You know that they will, but they may not go up as fast as, for example, the Airtel, yes, yeah, but I don't trust those guys. But as fast as most of the banks, their shares have been going up.
But standards,
You invested there?
no.
You can also, if you have money, just buy. Be buying. After some years, you are going to benefit from them.
But the bloggers.
Brokers, there are a lot of them. Should I give you mine? My broker. Seda Capital. I can give you the number, their number. In Blantyre, but you correspond with them on email. They'll create Seda Capital.
Most of the bloggers are
All of them, but you can get in touch with them. Seda Capital is okay. Yeah, it's one of them. Seda Capital. The chief executive was my classmate in school. Well, you can only analyze when you are out through with classes. You can only analyze when you are looking at a trend over a period. Let's say if I bought shares last year in August and I look at them after a year, then I know they have gained this much or they have lost this much in value.
So, sir, the redeemable shares, they say they issue, they have like 40,000. Does the value increase as the time goes?
Yeah, so they might have bought 40,000 shares of 1 kwacha each, but at the time of buying, they bought them at 5 kwacha. So that means it's 40,000 times 5, which is how much? So they bought them for 200,000 kwacha. Yeah, go ahead. and over time, the value of all the shares will continue to grow